Hey everyone, this is John with the Active Towns channel. I am here in Copenhagen. I have a special guest with me here.
Hi everyone.
How's it going? Robert Martin, good to see you again.
Nice to see you again.
Yeah.
Welcome to Copenhagen.
Yeah, thank you very much. We just did you just gave me a quick little tour of the DAC there, the Danish Architecture Center. Real quickly, why don't you just introduce yourself? Who the heck is Robert Martin?
Yeah. So if you watch John's channel, you might remember me when I was the head of mobility at Yaya Architects. Yeah. Since then, I've kind of branched out on my own and joined a Norwegian consultancy called Beta Mobility, and opened an office for them here in Copenhagen, where we kind of works quite specifically with mobility, but through a range of different things, ranging from like new mobility, car sharing, scooters, all the way up to sustainable urban planning, which I'll hopefully be able to show you a bit later.
Fantastic. Looking forward to it. Let's go out and ride the bikes.
Let's do it.
All right, cool.
It's also funny, usually I think I'm one of these quite aggressive Copenhagen riders, which is kind of zooming about, but I think when I'm with someone else, it's very relaxing just to chill out.
Yeah, and of course you're speaking with not exactly a Danish accent. Why don't you explain where the heck you're from?
Yes. Well, I'm originally from Australia, but I think when I go back to Australia, they ask where I'm from in the UK. So something has definitely happened by living here for the last 10 years. When I first moved here, actually, no one really understood what I was saying.
Yeah.
So I had to stop using a certain amount of Australian slang because it was a little bit disheartening that I would be the only native English speaker in a room and people didn't know what I was saying. So we're just going to go right here.
If you wouldn't mind, let's stop and talk a little bit about this bridge.
Yeah, sure.
Yeah. So we just rolled across a pretty cool little bridge. I realize it's probably either both famous and or infamous, depending on who you're talking with. We have a very, very busy street over here, which a lot of people who have ever visited Copenhagen are probably familiar with. It's one of the sites during the morning and afternoon commute where you see just tons and tons of people riding bikes to get to their meaningful destinations. But earlier you were saying to me that this particular bridge has a little bit of history in terms of how it got funded and all of that. But why don't you, I know this may have predated you, I don't know when the bridge came up, but what can you tell us about this pretty cool little bridge?
I mean, it's quite recent. So the larger bridge that you're referring to is called Langebro, so Long Bridge, which is a pretty big traffic artery actually. And it's a pretty big traffic artery for cars because it's actually the main kind of distribution road called Hosianesen, which carves through the city center. So it's actually quite controversial, this strip. And actually, how we first got to know each other is that I posted this image on LinkedIn about the municipality wanting to build a giant tunnel. And it's actually just here at the foot of this bridge, where they want to essentially carve out from here through to the other end of the city. But to go to Little Langebro, with the development of the blocks, the building that the Danish Architecture Center is housed in, that was funded by a large philanthropic fund here in Denmark called Real Dania. As part of the development of that building, they wanted to create new access points for people to actually reach it, especially by more sustainable modes. And that's where this bridge called Little Langebro, so you have Langebro or Little Langebro, was built. And the last few years with COVID has completely warped my sense of time, but I wouldn't say it's more than 5 years old actually. And it actually connects this this kind of like cycling route through the center of the city out to Christianshavn, which is kind of a much needed connection.
And when we were doing our introduction, we were at one of my favorite, active mobility intersections. It's just so vibrant, especially in the morning and in the evenings, just the number of people walking and biking, coming through that space there.
Yeah, it's quite incredible. I think maybe as a tourist you might get a bit shocked sometimes because it's a bit hard to navigate with all the cars coming through. One thing I wanted to say though is that the city has been doing quite a good job of building these cycling bridge.
Right.
Well, there's actually one up there that's a bit controversial called the Kissing Bridge, but that's another story. But they're essentially building cycling bridges down throughout that. But what we're going to see later is actually a point where the citizens don't want it being built.
Oh, okay.
And there's actually a protest against having a cycling bridge being built.
Interesting.
Yeah, a little bit sad, but we can see that later.
Okay, we'll do that later. Okay, cool.
As an aside, it's really cool. The city's creating a lot of new places. Well, basically, you used to be able to swim anywhere in the harbour, which was a really amazing thing because in summer, the entire harbour would be pulled up.
Yeah.
And then there was a little bit of problems with people swimming in the paths of boats and getting in accidents, and the city actually then said that you're not allowed to swim except for designated areas, which is a little bit sad, but since then they've actually started to open up more of these areas. You can see this little pavilion they've built there is one such example.
Yeah, so you can dip in and cool off.
Yeah, and it's great. It really makes the city alive that there are these public spaces that people can just go use and hang out that don't require really any kind of commercial activity to be activated. Yeah.
The terminology I use within active towns is that, you know, these are activity assets that a city has. It's, it's something that is built or organized at the city level. You can put a pin on a map and say, hey, over here we've got a pop-up swimming place, and encourages people to, again, be in public space, get some physical activity maybe, or just lounge around in the water. But yeah, good stuff. Yay.
The city was facing bankrupt in the 90s. Okay. And a large part of that was because a lot of families would move out. And so the city, in order to kind of keep families in, they wanted to create a lot more kind of these like activity assets, or however you like to call them, but basically like public spaces. And that's where a lot of the transformation of the harbour has actually come from. So you've got the bathing spot here, and on the other side, one of these first attempts to actually create these places that people would actually want to be. Right. The downside is that to pay for it, the city sold off all this prime harbourfront area to this pretty banal commercial office space, which in some ways allowed the city to continue to exist, but we have this legacy of this like horrible kind of commercial areas here, which completely separate the northeastern side of the city from the waterfront in this area. Right. And you can see they're trying to do some spots to reactivate it, but compared to this side, which I guess also has the more sun, so makes sense. Right. It really is lacking something.
Yeah, yeah.
I think we will just... Actually, we can go further down.
Okay.
So I think where Henrik might have picked you up here and then gone right, we're going to go left.
Okay, cool.
But yeah, you can just see it here. It's this kind of like big box.
Yeah.
Kind of no sense of ground floor. Like, I don't know. People maybe run through there, but it just doesn't really do anything. It doesn't connect to anything. Yeah. It's got like a giant highway, maybe giant in an American sense isn't right, but a giant Danish highway just behind it. It's a real mess of an area, and so many people have considered what to do there, but no one can really come up with an answer.
Yeah. Yeah, I rode through there yesterday, and I was just like, yeah, this hasn't improved that much since I did it in 2015.
they can't do anything to it.
Yeah, it's hard.
Back when I was at Yaya, we did a project proposal for it, just like an uncommissioned one. Yeah. Where our idea was that we could slim down the road and take away, there's a lot of like ground floor parking out the front. Yeah. And essentially offer that to the building owners and say like, okay, you can further develop your plot of land. Yeah. But what you need to do is take out the ground floor and then make that some kind of semi-public, accessible kind of spaces. Right, right. So it was this trade-off of let's get rid of the ground floor parking, kind of increase the density, but then also use that as a trade to the building owners so that we could actually improve the quality of the ground floor. Yeah. Which I thought was quite a nice project that we did. Yeah. But you really need to find some like strong financial backers.
I was going to say, you know, it'd be nice to find a similar type of philanthropic group that's got more money than they know what to do with, and it's like, okay, let's fix this.
Yeah. I mean, that could definitely be something Real Dania could pay for.
Yeah.
We're gonna go left here.
Okay, sounds good. I'm mildly shocked that we were able to ride side by side that entire stretch there.
Yeah.
It was so busy last night.
Yeah. 10 a.m. Maybe that's people are finally at work.
Yeah. Yeah, it's a good point you're making too, is that people are kind of back from their summer holidays or starting to get there.
Yeah, I guess July is traditionally the entire country closes down.
Yeah.
I think it's a lot tied up to the school holidays.
Yeah.
And yeah. It's a bit annoying because August is when the better weather is.
Right.
So it's a bit of a shame that we take holiday in the wrong time of the year.
Yeah.
So now we're going to come into an area called Amager Fælled.
Okay.
Which is kind of like the Amager field. And have you been here before?
I have, yes.
Yeah? Okay, cool.
This is my, on this trip, this is my morning commute.
Ah, okay. Very nice. It's funny, I get lost every time I come in here.
Oh, this is delightful though. I can remember in past years doing runs in here too.
Yeah, it's quite cool. The reason why I want to bring you here is that we're working on this new urban development that's actually being built. Mm-hmm. It's called Fælledby.
Okay.
Which I guess is a little bit of a play on words because it's on the fell, like it's on the field.
Yeah.
Fælledby, field city.
Yeah.
But you could also kind of bring it across to Fælles, which is kind of like communal in some way.
Oh, okay.
So it's going to be this new neighborhood of about 5,000 people.
Yeah.
Right? And it's designed to be very close to nature.
Yeah.
Because obviously, like, you don't really have many spots like this in Copenhagen where you might have the proximity to nature that Fælledby is going to have.
Yeah. Well, and I think that's worth pausing. You know, again, this is a fabulous, access to nature. Mm-hmm. That's literally just a couple minutes from where we were, just in the middle of the city.
Yeah.
It's fantastic.
It's actually crazy. We, so at Beta, we developed this, we like to play around with technology.
Yeah.
And we developed this little AI mapping tool that can actually pick up cars from satellite images. Mm-hmm. So essentially you just feed it Google Maps or maybe more legitimate data sources.
Yeah.
And it will pick up all the cars in the area.
Yeah.
And we ran it over Copenhagen. We actually did it over the 15 largest cities throughout the Nordics.
Yeah.
And the one that took the longest to process was Copenhagen, actually.
Okay.
The most cars were here.
Yeah.
But essentially, we picked up the same amount of parked cars that equaled a little bit under the same amount of space as as Amager Fælled.
Yeah.
So we talk about these kind of natural assets that we have in the city and need to preserve them.
Yeah.
But then we also just we have that amount of space within cities just
just sitting.
Yeah, exactly.
Dedicated to car parking.
Yeah.
Wow, that's a great way to reframe it.
Yeah.
Is equating it.
And I know there'll be people who push back. I think we're going to go left here.
Okay.
This seems like a good place to go left. I think a lot of people will push back and say, cars are a utility, people need them. But in Copenhagen, we don't quite have that same utilization of cars.
Yeah.
A lot of the cars stand still Monday to Friday.
Right.
And people are commuting via walking, cycling, or taking public transport. And
sure.
the car then is essentially just used on the weekend. And, you know, it's a public asset, streets.
Yeah.
Which is essentially just being given up for people to have the option to use something on the weekend.
Yeah.
Which is it's a bit hard to swallow sometimes.
Yeah. Well, it kind of speaks a little bit to the difference between, urban setting like a Copenhagen, and then some of the smaller cities throughout the country and really throughout the Nordics. And then also coupled with that, a desire to recreate and get to, we were talking earlier before we hit the record button about, this culture of getting to the remote cabins and being able to get into places where you can escape the city.
Yep.
And so a lot of people, I think, end up holding onto their motor vehicles for that kind of weekend trip, and then the holidays, and then, like you said, maybe it's not all that practical or necessary on a day in and day out basis.
We do a lot of work in Norway, and Norway loves their cabins, and the big opposition towards let's call it slimming down the car fleet is access to the cabins.
Yeah.
But it's funny, I just spent a week up in Norway with my colleague Johan, who you will meet sometime in the future.
Yeah.
And he has his cabin, which is not really accessible by public transport in the same way, and they just they hire a car.
Okay. Yeah.
They use one of the local car sharing companies called Hura.
Yeah.
And then it works for them. They have access to a car when they need it. When they don't, because they're living in the city, they don't have the burden of maintaining or paying for a car.
Yeah. Yeah, reframing, what it means. You don't have to be car owner. You can be you can hire it when you need it.
Yeah, and that's very much how I do it. I have access to a car essentially whenever I need it.
Yeah.
Not to say that maybe I need it as much as other people, but I never feel that I'm lacking for access to a car.
Right. And I think that's a really good point too, is that I try to emphasize here on the channel that it's not an anti-car channel, but at the same time we want to make sure we have good management systems in place, and we're not ceding over needlessly space to the automobile. To your point on the amount of space that we're giving up to parking.
I think it's incredible actually how many people are out. There's just kind of prams lying around. We've seen lots of cargo bikes. It's Wednesday, by the way. This isn't the weekend. Yeah,
this is a Wednesday. 10 a.m. on a Wednesday. And like I said, this has been like my morning commute based on the neighborhood where I'm staying at an Airbnb, and so it's been delightful riding through this environment both in the morning and the evening. And same thing, there's plenty of people here to enjoy nature, but at the same time people are using it for legitimate utilitarian commute purposes too.
But I will add that because we're going to come up to the work site of Fælledby. And actually this will be the kind of one of the main traffic corridors to access it. And it's going to be a challenge because I think, middle of summer, during the day, it's fine to get through, but there are no street lights here. It's actually very hard to navigate. And being able to find a way that people will actually use this as an everyday commuting kind of corridor is going to be a big challenge. Yeah, for sure. As well as just, we see this on most of our multi-use types of pathways and trails where you have a mixture of people using it for recreation purposes and then people using it for commuting purposes and everyday trip purposes. There can be a tension there if the facility isn't wide enough, have the appropriate additional facilities like lighting, as you mentioned. And so, we have to kind of step back and say, okay, as we know that we're going to increase the pressure and usage on these things, we kind of have to think through that. And from a utilizer perspective, I always, default towards, hey, if you're on a bike, you kind of need to slow down if you're mixing with pedestrians and an environment where you're also mixing with other people who are on bikes or who are traveling slower. So give yourself extra time in the morning. The interesting thing though is that we're not going to have, they can't put lights here. It's a nature reserve. Yeah, it's a nature reserve. So it's going to stay like this. Which is also a good thing. Yeah, exactly. All right. I often get lost coming here. I'm probably here once a week, and I just have to follow Google Maps every time because
right.
I find it so disorienting.
Yeah.
But I'm sure it will happen. I think the other interesting thing to talk about with this area is that it is part of the city's strategy to build metros. Essentially what they did is the city to be able to fund the metro development, they sold off a large amount of municipal-owned land, which would then be developed, and the proceeds from that would then pay the metro.
Right.
So actually, where Fælledby is, it wasn't supposed to be there.
Okay.
It was actually supposed to be next to where you're staying in Sundby.
Yeah.
And if you go to Sundby metro station, you'll notice that it's very barren. There's not a lot of development there to justify a metro station.
Yeah.
But it's because when they first proposed to have Fælledby there was a lot of protest groups that don't want urban development on this nature reserve, which is a fair enough point.
Right.
The thing is that the metro station was already built.
Right.
And there was a kind of a compromise because where the development was going to take place did have quite a high biodiversity level.
Right.
And so it didn't make a lot of sense to be building it.
Right.
But so where they've moved it now, there essentially wasn't that same level of biodiversity.
Okay.
And actually the development and the kind of treatment that they will do to the site will actually increase the amount of biodiversity that is there.
Ah, fabulous.
The funny thing is that this development should have been next to a metro station, and now it's not.
Yeah, yeah.
So it's actually quite tricky in terms of solving the mobility challenges.
Yeah, yeah.
Which is what we're working on.
Yeah. And so with that, from an active mobility perspective, at least for those people who are able to use a bike or a cycle of some sort, whether it's an adaptive cycle or whatever, what sort of distances are we talking about to get to, like where we started at
so
the Architecture Center?
The route that we're doing right now is quite typical. Maybe it's between 15 to 20 minutes, which isn't so bad.
Right.
I think the main challenge will be, you can see it actually just poking through the trees right now.
Oh yeah. Yeah, there it is.
It's actually quite cool. It's almost entirely built out of timber.
Okay.
There is extremely high ambitions when it comes to sustainability across like all measures.
Yeah.
And I think the only place they're really using concrete is in the foundations because they weren't able to do it out of timber in this case.
Yeah, yeah.
But yeah, it's kind of nice the way it just pokes out.
Yeah, yeah.
Into it.
Yeah, it's just poking up right there. Okay. Yep, there's a good look at it.
But back to your point or your question about mobility, I think the main challenge is actually that when the first residents move in, all the amenities that allow you to have that active lifestyle, like having supermarkets nearby, won't exist.
Okay.
So how do you actually encourage those initial residents who move in to create the mobility culture within the area?
Yeah, yeah.
Which then is going to be kind of imprinted on future residents that move in over time.
Yeah.
I think it's from 2025 to 2032.
Yeah.
It'll be developed.
Yeah, and you're hitting the nail on the head there in terms of that challenge, because for those other meaningful trips, getting to a grocery store and getting to other services and cafes and all that kind of stuff. You kind of need all of that to also be in place so that you're not just incentivizing people to have to feel like, oh, you know what, I have to have a car.
Yeah, exactly.
And I have to use a car.
So the funny thing is that there's only, it's like a 0.3 parking spaces per apartment, roughly, parking norm.
Right.
So it's actually, a lot of the people that are going to go there are buying into that lifestyle, whether they realize it at this point or not. But there is going to be very few cars there.
Right.
So the challenge will be is how do we actually make it a successful neighborhood where people don't care.
Right. Yeah, yeah.
That they don't have access to their own car.
Yeah.
they will have access to cars through shared schemes.
Yeah, exactly. Going back to the metro station situation, is there a future opportunity of, as this continues to build out? There's just no future opportunity.
I don't know, I haven't looked at it, but
yeah.
They were going to build it on this nature reserve, and they're not going to do it.
Yeah.
But on your way home, you should stop by the station, and you can kind of maybe compare.
I think I remember that station. Yeah, I know what you mean by it's just kind of like, okay.
Yeah.
It's a little bit out of place.
And I think
So, how about other types of public transit in terms of like a tram line or bus lines?
There's actually very limited. There's no tram line here.
Okay.
I will just. Maybe we can just hop off. If I had thought of this earlier, we could have gone in.
Yeah.
It was kind of like, what am I going to show John? I was like, this is a good. But no, and there's very little bus service. So we're also speaking to Movia.
Okay.
Who is the kind of regional public transport authority.
Yeah.
About how to actually increase service.
Right.
It's actually a lot that I kind of work with in my everyday, like what is this intersection between urban development and mobility? Public transport and like property developers don't necessarily talk to each other that much.
Right. Even
though a project like this is inducing so much demand that a public transport authority should be able to meet.
Yeah. So. Active construction site, we've got this going on. We do see that this is connecting up to a paved cycle path here, bikeway here. You're absolutely right. It's one of the main conundrums. How many people did you say would be here eventually?
Well, I think there's be 5,000 residents.
Okay.
They're actually building quite a big school, which will be a couple thousand students.
Okay.
Which has its own mobility problems.
Yeah.
There's going to be like an elderly home. There's going to be cafes, shops. You can maybe see like some of the vibe here.
Yeah.
But I think what I would like to point out to you is there is still opposition to it.
Okay.
There is still, like, when I come out of meetings sometimes there'll be like protests going on, and you can actually see here that someone has written Fælledby gør dig syg, which is like Fælledby is making you sick.
Ah, interesting.
So I mean, it's a bit hard, but like I can understand the protesters' point of view, but I also understand that there have been decisions made in the 2000s about the development of a metro line, which is actually giving the city a lot of qualities. And the city has decided to finance that through property development. And this is the kind of result of it. And I think overall, because of the placement of the area now, that it has moved off the high diversity area, they're actually going to be able to improve it.
Okay.
And also people are going to enjoy living here. It's going to be an amazing place to live.
Yeah, because they're going to be right next to that nature reserve and be able to take advantage of that. And how about this major corridor behind us here? Is that a place that is in some way accommodating transit?
There is a very limited bus capacity on it. I think it's simply because, like, you can see here, maybe there wasn't a bus route because there was nothing here to connect to.
Correct, yes.
And so that's where the discussion is. This is, it's called Vejlandsallé. You'll notice that there is, the bicycle lane is actually completely separate from it. It's a little bit annoying, actually, in terms of using it as a cycling connection, because you have to kind of come off. But this is like, there's a lot of traffic that goes here. Because I guess this would be one of the main routes that connects this area called Ørsted to the rest of the city.
Yeah, and if we swing around and take a look, I mean, that big building right there, that's a major Marriott-owned hotel. I was surprised to see that. I was like, whoa, what's going on? Here's a bus that's coming in right now, transit line. We also see in the distance there, within walking distance, a whole bunch of housing and some more hotels. So this is clearly, and I guess that's an arena. What sort of arena is that?
It's a big conference center.
A conference center, okay. Hence the hotels.
Yeah,
if
exactly.
It's a conference center, the
But
hotels.
this has all been connected. This is actually the first area they developed to pay for the metro. So
Okay.
the first metro line actually runs parallel to this development. It's essentially a big long strip. That essentially then connects to the airport. So I think this is why the development of the conference center, the hotels, because they essentially wanted to use this as the new kind of development area for people coming in.
So really what we have is we have a challenge of we've got this kind of going in, we've got across this major STROAD, we're going to call it a STROAD, we've got hotels and conference centers and more housing, and that is served by bus, we saw the bus, and it is also served by the metro?
Yeah, exactly.
Okay.
The autonomous metro.
The autonomous metro. So the metro is within striking distance to this, maybe not short, your typical short walk shed version of it, but my mind is thinking and going, if somebody wants to get on the metro and be able to get to meaningful destinations, if the metro site actually had some decent bike parking, I could get on my bike there, zip on over, and be there in very short order.
So we're actually working on a connection that would connect through the nature reserve to Sundby. This is a discussion, right, of whether we could actually create like a lit kind of connection that would provide better access, because it's a little bit tricky actually at the moment to access it.
From this side?
Yeah,
over here.
And I think we're also spoiled here.
So
like in most areas that would be fine to be like a kilometer away. The thing is that I think,
because that's a different conversation, right? It's a different conversation between metro stops being within a walk shed, which is going to be less than a kilometer typically, versus, the distances are a little greater here, and so it's kind of like, you may be inclined to ride your bike unless it's a truly nice day and you want to go for that longer walk.
I think what we're finding in Copenhagen, at least, is like cycling is extremely high in terms of modal share, so is public transport suffered throughout Corona, is gradually coming back. Walking probably was really good throughout Corona, has come down a little bit. But the tricky thing is with increasing car ownership. Because essentially what happens is once people own the car, it becomes cheaper to use it. Like the more you use it, the more cost effective it is to have.
You've already made that upfront cost.
So what I'm a little bit more concerned about is like providing a mobility system that meets every single need that a person has. Because if it doesn't have access to a car, access to public transport, bicycle lanes, things that are close to walk, if that need for a car exists and people buy one, then all of a sudden all those other like attributes can become redundant. Because people will use their car to drive to the shops. To do a bigger shop instead of just walking the 5 minutes to do continuously small ones. So in projects like this, even though we're a kilometer away from the metro, it's really concerned about how do we make the entire experience so easy that that isn't an issue that causes people to want to buy a car.
Well, it sounds like one of the things that you have done is you've structured from a policy standpoint, and one of the things that I talk about, we talked a little bit about activity assets, in the built environment. We can put a pin in the map and say, hey, we've got a protected bike lane over here, we've got a park over here, we've got a pool over here. The other thing I talk about is the activity assets from a software perspective, and that's the policies and the things that are done that bring activity assets to life or into existence, and then also to life. And one of the things that you've done, or this development has done, is with very, very low opportunities for parking and for car ownership, that becomes like an activity asset from a software perspective. You've got a policy in place that hopefully will encourage that. And now I would even go so far as to say that, one of the things that could be done from an activity asset in the physical realm, hardware realm, might be if this is like a major, way for them to access everything that's happening over here, is maybe like an underpass, a cycling underpass that, gets you away from having to wait at, an intersection of a massive STROAD. kind of thinking about things of saying, well, yeah, we're going to lean into the fact that we are kind of in Copenhagen. We're used to riding our bikes, and to your point, let's try to, make it less necessary for people to feel like they have to buy a car. And if they can jump on their bike and easily get past this monster road, lickety split, and then be, over to this other area and to other meaningful areas where there might be shopping and all that.
I think they're actually going to build a cycle bridge. We can I'll show you the area.
Yeah.
But one thing, just to your point, I think the Fælledby team is extremely good. I've already mentioned they have very high ambitions according to sustainability, community, biodiversity, and I think they're supported by a number of very good consultants, like Henning Larsen, with the primary architect here, and I mean, this is ultimately their vision. I hope when I'm saying any of these things, I don't want to
it's their vision.
Like
that's the good caveat.
That this has been beta in any case. Like we're just merely trying to make that vision happen in some way. What are the mechanics? But the other thing that they've done is they've actually had like an urban life strategy. They hired a company called Brick. That is actually then concerned about like, okay, how do we use these activity assets that you talk about, like different types of communities? How do we embed them in different spaces? How do we like create dynamic spaces that could be like used for different purposes throughout different times of the day? So you create different types of ownership of spaces and can activate basically the neighborhood, from morning to night. So I think it's really cool, and I'm really looking forward to seeing it develop, and when the first residents move in here in April next year.
April next year. Fantastic. Yeah, thanks for showing me this. What a fun project to be involved with, too.
Yeah.
Good challenges.
Yeah, but it's like, it's gone, like the protest groups, like it's gone to court. It went to like the High Court of Denmark. But yeah.
Once it gets to this stage where it's actually, being built, it's a little bit harder.
Well, they had to stop work for a number of months last year. I think I think the delays cost the development a lot of money.
Oh, I'm sure. Yeah.
But yeah, it's really hard. Like I was laughing at some point before because I saw another kind of graffiti on the wall saying that it's greenwashing.
Yeah.
And I think it's very hard when you work in urban development to have any truly sustainable kind of standpoint in it, because you're always extracting resources, you're always changing things, you're always going to create like an area which is like, say, requiring energy. Right? Yeah. So the idea of greenwashing, it's very hard. It's a very hard kind of discussion point. Of how, if you work in architecture or urban development at all, can you be sustainable? You can probably reduce your impact. And you can probably improve areas in some things, but to be truly sustainable is an extremely hard, I think, kind of position. To be.
And there's a tremendous amount of pressure to build housing because there's such a housing shortage.
In some places. I mean, if you want to live in the center of Copenhagen, yes. But if you want to live 25-minute bike ride outside the city, maybe less so.
And that kind of brings up that whole concept of, can we create housing that is, easily accessible by walking, biking, public transit, and have those meaningful destinations nearby. A la that great controversy that is a 15-minute city.
It's funny, it's Copenhagen Fashion Week this week. So you'll see a lot of fashion influencers riding around on shared bikes.
Which we love to see.
Exactly. I think the problem with Copenhagen is it's so like monocentric. But I mean, I think this is as cities grow, they need to kind of decentralize in some sense. And I know in Sydney, where I'm from, that is like a much bigger population. I think the population is 6.5 million of Sydney, the greater metropolitan area. I think they have like they have a three. They're trying to develop 3 kind of central cores within the area to try and relieve the pressure. We're going to go left here, but this is where they want to build the bridge.
So a bridge. So a bridge to get us on the other side of this STROAD.
Yeah, I'm not 100% how they want to do it, but you can see here that like it's not the, considering this is like the main artery for bikes, it's not necessarily so well planned.
Okay, and it's already being constructed. Is that what that ramp is?
I'm not sure what they're doing.
There's a footer right there.
Yeah, so it could already be happening.
Yeah. And that looks to be like some sort of a bed for a ramp. Huh.
Yeah.
Well,
I love bridges here. Well, almost everywhere. I still, it's going to be funny to show you the opposition. I hope it's on both sides of the harbour. But yeah. Because you can just, like, this is like it's like a big corridor connecting 2 new urban development areas.
Right.
The fact that we're on this like unmarked road.
Right.
Right, with no kind of defined cycle route.
Yeah.
Is a little bit tricky, especially because you can't cycle along the road over there.
Right. It's a little bit tricky, but I've ridden this particular road multiple times over the last decade, and I've never had any issues here. It's always been quite pleasant. We do see that we've got lighting here. Maybe one of those weird, undefined things, but it's been pretty comfortable every time I've been here.
But I think the intersection we just went through.
Yeah,
right?
That's
like there's no
the problem.
lights.
Yeah.
There's no kind of priority. People just kind of go, and the more urban development that takes place here, the more people will be using it.
Yeah. And you're saying that bridge will help fix that issue?
I assume so.
Yeah.
I assume that's why they're building it.
Okay.
Because then they wouldn't have to put a timer. It would have to do with some kind of traffic capacity that then they're not stopping traffic flow along it.
Yeah, yeah. And we can kind of see why this is an undefined road. There is some parking here. We've got this enclave that's up here.
We're going to come up here.
Yeah.
This is kind of, I always feel like this is a little bit of a secret part of Copenhagen, where you do see this intersection between like the harbour, the nature and Amager Fælled, and some quite unique forms of housing that they have here.
Yeah.
And I guess some locals know about it, but I always love coming here.
Yeah.
So I'm excited to show you it.
Yeah. Yeah. Let's do it. I remember tripping into this place back in 2015 and going, what the heck is this?
Yeah, Sulhavn.
Yeah, yeah. It kind of reminded me a little bit of Christiana's haven. You know, it's like, is it kind of one of those?
Yeah, I took the former city architect of Melbourne, Rob Moore here. And Melbourne is like one of the great cases of bringing garnered to do like massive transformations of the city. So it's basically like Rob Moore and Jan Gehl who work together a lot. And he was here last year for the International Architecture Conference.
Right.
And he was obviously being shown around all the city in different places. And then he just asked if I would show him someplace, and I was like, okay, well, no one's going to take you here. And it was so nice to be able to show him this part of Copenhagen, which is just...
It's like, here, I'll show you something you haven't seen yet.
Yeah, exactly.
This brings up a good point, though. I mean, some of the stuff that we've seen, we can even see this building terminating this vista here on this at the end of the path there. Of course, that is an old industrial building that's been rebuilt. That's the other thing that a lot of has been happening here in the city is Yeah, we do have some greenfield development, but we also have a whole lot of infill being done of repurposing a lot of industrial space.
Yeah, 100%. Especially like industrial harbour, so former ports. Because I think Copenhagen has been like deindustrializing its harbour for quite some time. So then you're left with those remnants of old industrial buildings. And there's actually a very strong push by architects here to work with sustainability.
Yeah.
And so transformation of existing kind of building assets is incredibly important then.
Yeah.
And what that means is you actually get like a lot of very like interesting architecture, because it's not this tabula rasa that architects can just go like a blank slate.
Yeah.
They actually have a context that they really need to carefully work with.
Right. Yeah.
I just wanted to quickly show you this, because this is another thing that the city has done in terms of these activity assets. Along the harbour, they kind of built all these like little pavilions, which are not only places for people to just hang out and stay, but there's also clubs. So, yeah, it says Verenighuis, so it's basically like a community, like clubhouse. And this one has like 3 things, so it's like water sports. So I imagine that there's a club here which I don't imagine costs that much per year. Let's say you know, $80 per year, and then you have access to just like kayaks in there, I would assume. They probably have some like teaching facilities. It's called like a nature school here, but I really love these kind of amenities that they plug in, which just like kind of activate this space.
Yeah.
You can see kids fishing down there.
Yeah. Very, very cool.
But I just want to point out that this is connected to the super bicycle highways. So Sissel, who you met, she used to be the secretary of. So you can see here, it's bicycle parking, obviously, to access here, but then there's like a pump if you need some air in your tires. Tools to fix it. Yeah, you can see the mix between like the old kind of little, I don't want to call them cottages, they're kind of like little huts for the sailors, combined with like all the new development that's happened along there.
A nice little mix.
Yeah, and there's actually like quite a mix of housing typologies on the other side. You see like the kind of terrace housing on the other side, mixed with like the apartment blocks. I think it would be quite amazing to have one of these places with just like a boat outside, being able to get around.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's funny. Essentially what I want to show you is that there was this phenomenon, I think it happens in Germany as well. It's called a Kolonieheu, which is essentially like an allotment garden.
Right, yeah.
And initially they were kind of like just a patch of land to grow vegetables. Then I think they transformed a little bit to also have like a small cabin, like very small thing that maybe has a kitchenette.
Right.
And over time they've kind of grown that people can actually live in them.
Okay.
And we're going to come up to one of these Kolonieheu, allotment garden areas.
Yeah.
And you'll actually see like over summer that people are just living within them.
Yeah.
And it's this just kind of, you know, it feels like suburbia a little bit.
Yeah.
It's just small kind of like villas.
Yeah.
But the proximity to Copenhagen means that it's just, well, it's not even proximity to Copenhagen, it's proximity to the center.
Yeah,
because,
the center,
we're still in it.
Yeah.
But I think it's so cool to see, because I think a lot of people said Copenhagen, maybe a little bit more the charming inner city, but they don't necessarily expect these little, these small little villas in the nature reserve.
Right. You see somebody getting a nice paddle in. It's great to see the activation of the waterfront and also the water being used. not only just for swimming, but also other water sports and things like that. It's kind of nice having that connection to water.
Yeah, it's amazing. I love it. I have a sailboat here.
Oh, you do? Fantastic, yeah. So you know very well.
Yeah.
Especially the mental benefits of being able to get out on the water.
Yeah, exactly. But I mean, it's windy here all the time.
Yeah.
So you need something to actually make the most of what would otherwise be a little bit of an annoying thing.
Yeah.
But okay, so this is one of the little, you can see here, it says, welcome to Helvereningen. And essentially you'll just get all these like small little places that people should only really live in the summer.
Right.
Maybe they can't live here permanently,
right.
essentially.
Yeah.
But I just think there are just these amazing little spaces, like, and you can see some are quite big now because people have torn down the old ones.
Yeah.
But I think there's like a level of density which makes it, we'll go right here to go into the area and have a look. But I would love to get one of these.
Yeah.
Once a year, they have this meeting because you can't, it's not open market. It's like actually an organization that owns all of them, and then you kind of pay to have the right to use it.
Okay.
We'll just kind of go around here. So they have this little meeting, and you put your name in a hat.
Yeah.
And maybe they draw out 2 people.
Yeah.
And then your name goes on a waiting list.
Okay.
And then when someone sells, wants to get rid of it, the first person on that waiting list is like, do you want to buy this?
Yeah.
And then it's like quite affordable. Like we're not talking about a lot of money, but you can also understand that these are quite desirable. So it's not that they come up for so much, but you know, a lot of like self-build, small little wooden cabins, quite simple, designed for summer living when you just want to lie around and drink coffee and read in the sun and grow vegetables.
Yeah. Speaking of which, there's some vegetables being grown right there. Nice. I would imagine, I'm assuming that, you know, they can be handed down legacy-wise within homes.
I don't think so.
Oh, wow. Okay, so when somebody passes away, the estate is forced to sell?
Yeah, I would assume so because, don't quote me on that.
Yeah.
But I know there's a lot of, like they don't want to do that. They want to have this as an open process that's available to kind of everyone. They don't want like, you know, potentially like a number of families just to say, okay, this is ours now, we hold on to it forever.
Right.
It's actually they have a lot of these clubs and organizations, and a lot less is for sale. Like say that like kayaking club I said. Yeah. Often they'll have like a number of members that they can have, and then you go on a waiting list. Okay. But then once you're in the club, it's relatively inexpensive. Okay. So I'm a member of, say, like a winter bathing club that has like a sauna. Oop, just watch out. That has like a sauna, and I think I pay like, I don't know, $70 a year, and I'm just part of this club and can use it whenever I want. It's quite a nice way actually to create these activities throughout the city. Yeah. Well, it's good once you're in. Yeah. Because this winter bathing club has a 10-year waiting list now. So.
Oh wow, that's amazing.
But it's quite funny. You can see where like the new urban development is really crashing up against these old areas. Yeah.
And these look like these might have been retroed from.
It's hard to say. I think it's hard to say because these ones, you see these white buildings over there? Yeah. They look very similar to some buildings in the North Harbour, Norhound, which was a silo transformation. And now it's hard to see whether...
Which ones are silos,
Or like, are they just copying the style?
Right, right.
It's so funny because they want another bridge here.
Over the water, right? Yeah.
And then there's this protest group that says, it's like, no to the bridge. And it's so funny because you just see it in their like windows.
Oh, okay. No to the bridge.
I don't know the entire story. Yeah. And I don't know whether the municipality, when they first were going to do the area, whether they were going to have the bridge, or whether it's been an afterthought. Okay. But the urban development has come before the bridge. Right. And now I think it's here. Okay, it's on the other side. We'll just go left here and go around.
Yeah.
But essentially what's happened is this little neighborhood is like a little bit of a rich ghetto, a little enclave, where there's only really one access point in.
Right.
So only people who live there are ever going to go there.
Right.
And now all of a sudden they're going to get like a bicycle connection. So instead of being an enclave, it's a thoroughfare. And they don't want that.
Oh, so the rich people don't want a bridge.
Yeah. Maybe it says yes now. Maybe there's some other ones. But
I'm laughing because that's classic, right? It's like you have some community members are no, and some community members no, yes, we want
but
this.
I only see the yes ones now.
Yeah.
But essentially, it's a bit crazy because they want it. I think it's actually going to come up a bit here and then snake over. But they've ruined it a little bit. They haven't actually left enough room for it. Like, can you imagine a bicycle bridge going into that?
Yeah.
So there was this American architect actually, this guy called Morten Jensen, that did a proposal. Just like architects have a tendency, like if they want to do something, they draw it and say, this is how it could be, right? An unsolicited proposal.
Yeah.
And so he actually split the bridge. So a bicycle side would go on one side of the canal and the pedestrian side would go on the other.
Okay.
But I think he got a lot of hate mail from the residents saying, why are you trying to solve this problem?
It's like, we didn't ask you to solve the problem.
Yeah, exactly. But you can just, you can see here, like the connection, like the bicycle connection is up there, and then essentially, what is it, like 1.5 kilometers? Oh
yeah, it's a ways.
2 kilometers before there's another connection. So these are very separated.
Yeah. That brings us back to, the point, when do you need a bridge? Is it the number of people swimming across the harbor with their bikes? It's like, well,
but it's, but I mean, it's just going to help this area.
Yeah.
But these are, I would say these are typically quite expensive. You can, I think they do have to do a certain level of like social housing or affordable housing within it.
Sure.
But you're not going to see them from this edge.
Yeah.
They're often like different kind of cheaper materials pushed right towards, there's like a big road at the end.
Yeah. Very fascinating.
I wish there was one of these signs, and I wish I knew whether this said or like, I don't know. I don't think there'd be that many people in support of the bridge, because last time I was here, I'm pretty sure they were all against it. Anyway.
Oh well.
It doesn't seem to be on this side.
Perhaps everyone on this side is happy either way.
I think the people on this side don't care as much.
Yeah.
Because it must be. I don't think the street. Yeah, it must be here. Yeah, so this is going to be the connection, I think.
Okay. That kind of makes sense.
And then it's going to cut across to there. I don't know. It seems like it could have been handled a little bit better by the municipality, to be honest.
Yeah.
If you have residents protesting over something, it means that maybe something wasn't communicated in the right way.
Possibly, but you know how it is. I mean, even just looking at that other development and the people protesting that, it's like change is hard, and people have a hard time with change. So it is interesting. You don't see any of the signs on this side at all.
Yeah.
Maybe it's something that's only organized by that side, the homeowners on that side, the developments.
I think so. I think the impact is greater on that side.
Yeah. Perceived impact.
Yeah.
You're gonna
no, but I mean,
you're gonna destroy our culture.
But I mean, it is going to be busier. Like,
sure.
I mean, like, if they're worried that it's going to become busier, sure. But you can't move to an area that had a bicycle bridge planned.
Yeah.
In the middle of the city, and then expect to have this little quiet enclave.
Yeah. Cool. We got paddling through here. Very nice. All right.
But they're building a lot of development out here. And the new metro actually just opened. So another big issue with this area is that they kind of built all the housing before the like I don't know, 15 years before the metro opened. It's become like a lot of car ownership in these areas. And the metro just opened a month ago, which has been, it's kind of opened up this part of the city.
Yeah.
Yeah, this is a lot of the new areas of Copenhagen. It has like a much different feel than say like the inner city blocks, where you kind of have contained streets.
Yeah.
It's more like point houses.
Yeah.
With lots of space in between it, which I guess is good and next to a harbour setting, because you get like a lot of space for people to free out, but you don't have that same kind of like environment of the kind of closed in the streets, which kind of compresses everyone together and makes life happen.
Yeah.
This one is a former silo, the round one, just in front of you.
Okay.
I think it's one of the first silo transformations, actually.
Yeah. And that, of course, is sort of welcomes people as they come over the bridge.
Yeah. Yeah, they're very expensive housing.
Yeah.
Yeah. And then we're essentially back.
Yeah.
Actually, I'm going to show you this ugly road because I have to ride past it every day.
Okay.
And I hate it.
All right. Let's go see an ugly road.
We will just cross over here. I feel bad being on the sidewalk. I mean, yeah, so we're going to go left here. You will know this bridge. This is like the cycle bridge that connects to Little Snake, which you probably saw is closed at the moment.
It's under construction.
Did Henrik explain why that is?
Yeah, we didn't talk about it. I think I mentioned that I saw that it was closed. It looks like it's probably maintenance.
I don't think it's been very well communicated.
Okay. Well, we're gonna see it. There's a sign there, so it might say.
Yeah.
My Danish is a little weak, so I couldn't tell.
Yeah, but there's one thing, like, one thing to say it when it's being, okay. Is it not? No, I was just saying it's one thing, like, when it is closed to say, okay, the bridge is closed. But maybe a little indication beforehand.
Yeah. Help us out here, folks.
Yeah, exactly.
Let us know what's going on.
But anyway, so this is, as I mentioned earlier, this is one of these, like, sad points in Copenhagen urban development.
Yeah.
Where they sold off all this area.
Yeah. And you said that really kind of took place back in the 1990s, early 2000s?
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
That was like the first step because, and they used that money to invest in public spaces in the city.
Yeah.
Afsluttet. Okay. Okay, they said a month.
Okay.
Yeah, and so this would be another example of like a little sauna club.
Yeah, yeah.
So this isn't my one, but they will have lots of these kind of set up in different areas.
And I noticed that it's, in addition to the sauna right there, you've also got a nice little swimming
Like out
area
here?
there. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
I think this was a big part of the cleanup in the 90s, 2000s, of like deindustrializing the harbor, making the water clean enough to swim.
Right.
All of a sudden, the harbor is like an asset
Right.
that the public can use.
Yeah.
And like a quality that the city can use to attract
Yeah.
families back.
Yeah. It's an activity asset in more ways than one.
And we have this inner city IKEA.
Yeah, there you go. Go pick up a table or a bed with your cargo bike.
Yeah, we know the like the global lead for mobility at IKEA, and he says it hasn't been so popular here.
Yeah.
Also, there's been a lot of problems with theft. I think maybe it's one of these ideas that, like, in practice, like, in theory, sounds really great.
Yeah.
And then, like, the actual mechanics of it
Yeah.
are a little bit harder to make work.
Yeah.
But anyway, this is this road, which is
Okay.
essentially like, so you have like the harbor front, you have this like row of these like kind of big office buildings. You
Yeah.
have this kind of highway
Yeah.
that cuts through the city center.
Yeah.
And then you have like the railway.
Yeah.
So this area is really disconnected
Yeah.
in many ways from it. And you can see here, like, it's just like a bunch of parking, and this is my cycle to work,
Okay.
but along the road, and it's just,
Yeah.
I gotta say, it's not the nicest way.
Yeah.
Yeah, so so this whole development is a little bit tricky as well. It's a part of what's happening behind, and they had this idea that you had this kind of water edge along the harbour, you had like this kind of car infrastructure, and they've actually tried to create this kind of high line which runs along here between the buildings, which isn't really so successful and isn't completely connected up yet.
Okay.
But as part of it, we're going to go over here.
Okay.
As part of it, they've actually built a new bus depot,
okay.
which is very much in need because there hasn't been one for so long.
Yeah.
And essentially, there was like a back street along the central station where the buses just used to unload.
Right.
We'll just go through here. We'll just cross. Where the buses just used to unload onto the cycle path.
Yeah.
And it was just a mess because you had angry kind of bike commuters, just you had scared tourists who didn't realize they were doing the wrong thing.
Yeah.
It was just kind of like a big friction point. So they've moved it down here.
Okay.
Which I think is quite nice, and like there's like hotels and stuff, and so there's often, maybe not so much now, but there's often like lots of kind of shared bikes around here.
Right.
This is kind of like the bus network that connects, I guess, to Europe and the rest of the city.
Oh, wow.
Sorry, the rest of the country.
Okay.
But there aren't really any here.
At the moment, yeah.
And then this will connect then to the train station Düppelsbol. And there's like a metro, so it's kind of this exploded mobility hub in some sense.
Right.
Or at least they've tried to do it.
Yeah.
But it's not that well connected.
Yeah.
But this has been so sorely needed, because just imagine like 10 buses lined up on the side of the road with like people just unloading suitcases onto the cycle path.
Right. And cool, we see a little indoor waiting area here for people.
With a 7-Eleven.
Yeah.
Hey, interesting fact.
Yeah.
I always thought 7-Eleven was like a really global kind of brand, but I think it's only in Scandinavian countries that it's in Europe.
Oh, interesting. Okay.
And
I certainly have noticed it. Yeah.
And it's loved here. We'll just do a U-turn.
Yeah. Yeah, it was shocking for me to see it. I was like, what? What the hell?
Yeah, so this is like the limited car parking that they actually have at IKEA.
Okay.
So there is some of it.
Yeah.
And I guess. Yeah, so not a lot of action. But a huge amount of development. There's also this, you can see these towers in the distance. That was like a former post office kind of area.
Okay.
Where I guess they did a lot of the central distribution, which they've now moved out.
Right.
And so it's been developed into these like large office areas.
Okay.
But it's just like there's building going on everywhere.
Yeah.
Which is a bit insane.
And boom, here you go, another big empty lot.
Yeah, but so this is the last piece in this whole master plan that they haven't been able to fill. I think they're going to build this like cinema complex type thing there.
Okay.
But yeah, I mean, it's like a legacy site.
Yeah,
It's like what to do in like a pretty bad situation.
Yeah, yeah.
We can just go straight. It's actually nicer in this. Like, I mean, there's less traffic on this side, so it's somewhat nicer.
It's encouraging to see on some of these newer cycle paths, and we've got, you know, a little rain garden here, treatment.
Exactly.
Get some green elements going in, trying to soften up and cool up the space.
Yeah, I don't know if you've noticed, but there is actually a huge lack of green space in Copenhagen.
Yeah, I have noticed.
That's
why those really stick out. You know, when you see the integration of a rain garden with a bicycle lane, you're like, yes. And some trees, thank you very much. But yeah, you're right.
It's very little.
Yeah. Is there a concerted effort to try to change that?
Yeah, there is. I mean, like a lot of...
On the books?
I think it's tricky because the way the city has done its infrastructure, like its services infrastructure, is basically under the road.
Yeah.
So that would be the most natural place to put trees, like to try and do some like road slimming, but it's then going to intersect with like a lot of the
underground utilities.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
But yeah, you can see like, you think there's like big underground car parks everywhere.
Yeah.
But yeah, this is like a big bank headquarter.
Ah, okay.
Kind of area.
Bank headquarters. Yeah.
I think we can just turn right. But yeah, that was a little tour.
Very nice. Thank you so much. That was awesome.
No
any parting thoughts of wisdom?
Let me think. We still have 3 minutes, I think.
Okay.
Well, definitely don't sell off prime land cheaply and end up with this.
Yeah, with this stuff here,
Any cities.
Yeah.
Don't have major traffic arteries running between where people live and the harbour front.
Yeah.
That is something that like all cities have messed up with.
Yeah, yeah. Do you get the sense that the city, the metropolitan area, et cetera, is serious about handling and dealing with some of these? Or is it just too difficult and it's too much of our car culture?
I think it's tricky. It's like a very tricky political situation.
Yeah.
People probably come to Copenhagen and think it looks easy, but I think there is a lot of politics that goes into place, and it is hard. Copenhagen's been built off like it's been building out its cycling lanes for 50 years or something. We'll just go right here, making sure there's no one. right? So it's like lots of small decisions, right?
Yeah.
But like the bigger kind of decisions have been harder for the city to make and have been somewhat unsuccessful.
Yeah.
Whereas you see like, okay, in places like Paris, in places like Ghent, you know, the kind of, the cities that are now being celebrated, they're having like quite quick, large-scale transformation.
Right.
I don't know. It's hard to say which one is better because even though I am critical of Copenhagen sometimes, like it does have an extremely good modal split between walking, cycling, public transport, and car use. I just want it to be better because I think it can be better.
Right. Yeah.
And because we have this platform here, like it should be easier to do, right?
Right. Right.
But sometimes it's trickier. Yep.
How would you respond to the premise that Copenhagen is a really good example for cities around the globe that are more car-centric as a model to look to try to learn some things?
Yeah,
I mean, as you mentioned, there's a lot of hard decisions, but at the same time, you just mentioned the modal split. You're making things work.
Yeah.
At some level.
Yeah.
Again, not perfect, but
from what I understand, a lot of the early decisions were made during the oil crisis of the 1970s.
Yeah.
Where fuel was too expensive to allow people to drive, and you need to provide an alternative.
Yeah.
We'll just go right in here.
Yeah.
And so in some ways, that's when everything was kind of put in place.
Right.
I think
the wheels were set in motion.
Yeah, exactly. And I think Corona has done this a lot, right?
Yeah.
When you see a lot of people, like a lot of cities around the world putting these like temporary bike lanes, which then encourage people to use it and do it.
Yeah.
I think Copenhagen is kind of like is very good in that sense of encouraging people to strike while the iron's hot.
Yeah.
In some sense, and like when you do have that opportunity to do stuff, you kind of set it out and make it permanent.
Yeah.
I think the Copenhagen model would be harder to replicate now because it's been over such amount of time.
Right.
So 50 years, as I said, that if you want to take that long-term view, it's going to be too long to see the effects. And cities need change, not only in terms of climate change and reducing our carbon footprint, but with urbanization, more people, it's only going to get worse in terms of congestion.
Yeah.
We have huge problems in terms of health. We need to get people out, being more active. So I think it is a little bit tricky to go for this kind of slow, peaceful way. But what I think is good in coming to Copenhagen, learning is seeing what life is like.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah, right.
So maybe not the same method, but just seeing like what is the end goal.
Right, yeah. And it just looks and feels much more familiar.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
I think people love coming here and they love the freedom of getting on a bike, and it makes them happy to be here.
Yeah. And at the same time, we can roll down, in a separated bike lane, protected bike lane, whatever you want to call it, next to a STROAD, multi lanes of traffic, and you can say, oh yeah, okay. It's kind of coexisting. It kind of works. We had a couple of shared street locations, that weren't as super ideal, but that's kind of my point, is that it kind of looks and feels similar to a lot of car-centric global cities. And so I can see that you're going to get visitors from Sydney, you're going to get visitors from Melbourne and other places, including North America.
I think one thing is that people should come here in winter and see that people cycle when it's not nice.
Yeah, yes, because that's one of the big things. They say, oh, well, it's just all flat there, or oh, that'll never work. We have real winter.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
I think it's good. Yeah, it's just like seeing is believing is the main thing.
Yeah. Robert, thank you so very much.
No
This has been
worries.
fantastic. Boom, right up top here. Yes. Thank you. Woo. Hey everyone, thank you so much for tuning in. I hope you enjoyed this ride around Copenhagen with Robert Martin. And if you did, please give it a thumbs up, leave a comment down below, and share it with a friend. And if you haven't done so already, I'd be honored to have you subscribe to the channel. Just click on that subscription button down below and ring that notifications bell. And if you're enjoying this content here on the Active Towns channel, please consider supporting my efforts by becoming an Active Towns ambassador. Hey, super easy to do. Just click on the join button right here on YouTube or navigate over to activetowns.org. Click on the support tab at the top of the page, and there's several different options, including making a donation to the nonprofit or becoming a Patreon supporter. Patrons do get early and free access to all my video content. Again, thank you all so much for tuning in. I really do appreciate it. And until next time, this is John signing off by wishing you much activity, health, and happiness. Cheers. And I do need to send a very special thank you to all my Active Towns ambassadors supporting the channel financially, as well as serving as homestay hosts as I'm traveling around North America right now in 2025. Really do appreciate all of your support, and I simply could not do this without you. Again, thank you all so much.